Life is a journey, filled with challenges, opportunities, and unexpected moments. But with the right strategies, we can find meaning, purpose, and fulfillment along the way. This podcast is to help navigate you to apply biblical principles into your everyday life's challenges. Welcome to the Strategies of Life podcast.
Welcome back to Strategies of Life podcast. I'm joined here today with Brother Matt and our special guest, Brother Tyler Bizzell. Brother Tyler, we're glad to have you with us this morning, and we just want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to spend with us to share a little bit of your story, your background, and testimony of what God has done in your life, for your life, and just to share just a little bit of your experience and walk that you've encountered with God.
Yeah, well, I'm definitely grateful to be here. Thank you for having me on. In my life, I grew up in the church my whole life. I think both of you know, though, kind of fell off for a little bit there in my teenage years. And that's really where I feel like my testimony started. Because I don't think I would have been as, strong in my spiritual life if I wouldn't have fell off and, went through the typical high school kid stage. I loved to party, hang out with friends, really just fit in with the world. That's what I was seeking after when I was a kid in high school. And then that developed into, after I graduated, I was talking to my now wife, and we decided to go to a concert one night. It was June 15th, went to a Florida Georgia Line concert, and I was loving it. About 11 o'clock, 11:30 that night, I was hit by an F-250. And it was pretty impactful. A lot of people, even the tow truck driver, told my father-in-law, I don't know how he survived. I really thought I was towing away a dead man's car. My seat turned completely sideways. I was in the back seat of the car, even though I was wearing my seatbelt. That's how hard it hit us. I had a lot of broken bones. My hip was fractured on both sides. My pelvis was shattered. My femur, which runs from your knee to your hip, split in half, and it was hanging out of my leg. Huge laceration to my head. It was pretty bad. I went through multiple surgeries. It was a rough time. And when I was in the hospital, I believe I had a concussion just because I really didn't know where I was. I kept saying I was in Jackson. I was in Memphis. And
Just a trauma.
Yeah, I guess I was still in shock too, because they said I was awake the whole time I was in the car, but I have no memory of any of it. The main thing, though, is I had a lot of internal bleeding, and they couldn't figure out where it was from the outside. They just knew they had a chest tube in me. It was pouring blood out. Between my surgeries, of them trying to figure it out, because they had to do an exploratory surgery to try to find the bleeding, and they'd already put 6 bags of blood in me. So they really needed to find it because they didn't know how long I really had before I ran out of my own blood. So they go in and they take my spleen out because they think it's my spleen. It ended up being 2 veins behind my spleen. I lost my spleen for nothing. And but they found it and they patched me up. But that's really when God started working in my life. Obviously, at that time, I was a worldly kid, and that's all I really sought after. And for something like this to happen, at the time I was playing basketball tournaments. Like, I was really at the peak of my life, I felt. And really, I was probably at the lowest of my life when I feel like I was at my highest. So God started working with me in the hospital when I was aware of it. The first thing, and it's really hard for me, so sorry if I choke up a little bit, but I saw my dad, and that day after I had my wreck was Father's Day. And I hadn't even gotten him anything. Probably was going to be a simple Happy Father's Day and go on about my business. And all I could think, because I really wasn't talking, but all I could think was, I'm sorry. I felt like a failure as a son. because I was so caught up in myself. And that, surrounded by just the depression that lives in the ICU, because it's a dark place. Our pastor knows it. It's a really dark place. Just the things you hear going on in the rooms next to you and the stories that other people are going through as well. God really started working with me. Most nights I would just stay awake. And during the day I was sedated because they were waiting on surgeries to open up. So I didn't really remember a lot during that time. Because they had me on painkillers as well, so it's probably high as a kite most of the time in there. Yeah. But I just remember everybody from the church coming and seeing me. And it was really a shock, not a shock of the support, because I knew our church was, a great church body, a great church family. But these are really people that I disconnected myself with. Even though I came to church still, to respect my parents, I came to church, but I really didn't try to make any bonds or any close relationships inside the church. So it really was just a show of the true love that the church body showed to me. And so God started working with me. I started seeing God's love a lot more, especially when you're in a wheelchair coming out of the hospital and you're going through rehab. You're not going out hanging out with your friends every day like I was used to.
No basketball.
Yeah, there's definitely no basketball. So I was at home and I really just started reading more. It wasn't the Bible, probably should have been, but I was looking into deeper things that I'd never thought of before, things that just came across my mind, and I really felt like it was God just putting it in my life, showing me this is the next step in your life. So I really grew from what seemed like a traumatizing experience in my life. It's probably the best thing that's ever happened to me. I'm really grateful that God put me through it, because I learned a lot, and I was able to work through it and grow and separate what I needed in life versus what was the junk in my life. I was able to get rid of a lot of that junk that I had battling, that I probably would have struggled for years if I would have tried to have done it on my own. God just took it out of my life right there with one incident. Because after that, I never turned back. The thought came across my head a few times, like it'd be nice to be that same 165-pound athlete that I was, but I never went back to that life.
But the thought probably went through your mind, what if I did go back to that life?
Yeah.
What would happen?
Right, yeah, there's no good there for me, and I knew that. Right. But a lot of my spiritual growth has come in the last year, I feel like. I like to self-reflect. I don't know if y'all do that or not, but I have long car rides. I live an hour away from Jackson, and plus we have to drop the girls off at my wife's grandmother's house, and that's 30 minutes out of the way too. So about an hour and a half drive 3 days a week. So while I'm driving, I usually have like K-Love on or something, and I can blur it out. And I'm asking myself questions, and it was at either the end of December 2023 or the beginning of January 2024. I asked myself, I said, do you love God? And, the answer is obvious. Yeah, I love God. I mean, what kind of question am I asking myself? And then the thought just popped in my head, what are you doing to show it?
Wow.
I didn't read my Bible consistently. I would look at verses every once in a while. Didn't read it consistently. My prayer life was not good at all. It was almost scheduled. So I guess that's what God put on my mind. What are you doing to build a relationship with me? And then that's when Pastor came out with the spiritual life coaching. That was one of the greatest things that's ever happened to me is the spiritual life coaching, because I was able to hold myself accountable on a piece of paper and look and show my growth throughout each week or even each day. And I started to learn more. I know you guys don't know this, but I talked to Brother Will a lot, and I started creating my own Bible study. It's called "Why I Believe What I Believe," because growing up, we learn all the principles and the Bible. We learn it well,
Right.
but I never questioned any of it, and I felt like I needed to build my understanding of why we do say we believe, one God, one faith, one baptism. Why do we believe that? I didn't know. I couldn't. If someone on the street were to ask me, I wouldn't be able to explain it. I wanted that knowledge. I wanted to be able to quote the scripture and explain it. So I started diving deep into it, and that really took me places. It not only increased my prayer life, but my studying went through the roof. I went from zero studying at all to studying for hours on end. Started buying books about the oneness of God, watched debates, between oneness and Trinity. And I feel like now I'm at a strong place in my relationship with God. And obviously it's going to keep growing. I strive to grow every day. But that's really my testimony. I feel like, and I still have a long life left, hopefully.
You're still a young man. Still a young man. But you've lived a lot of life in what years you've had. And
Right.
and one of the things that you said that really stood out to me, you talked about your journey starting in your teenage years to becoming who you are right now. And you even made the statement that it wasn't even living for God, that you believe that your journey to become the spiritual man you are today began as a off-centered youth, distracted with the cares of the world. But you made the statement that you really think that that's where your journey began, and it was even walking away from God. But through you not necessarily walking away, but through you living a distracted life
Right.
and distance from God, that do you think that if you had not been that way, you could be where you are right now?
I think I could have. It would have been a lot harder, I believe, because sometimes you don't really know what it feels like until you've been through it. And I went through it, and I knew after going through it. I mean, yeah, it was fun. I'm not going to deny it wasn't fun to go out, drink and party with my friends, but there was no benefit that came out of it.
It wasn't really worth it.
Right. It wasn't
Right.
worth it. After going through it and then having, the car accident happen, I was able to see like there's nothing good that comes from that. And then you hear the horror stories and you see them of the alcoholics that happened just from partying in high school, stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's really sad to see. And I didn't want to do that. I knew that God was taking me places and that does me no good.
So do you believe your faith is stronger after experiencing the grace of God? Because it was the grace of God that helped get you through it. I remember talking to your dad, going through while y'all was going through everything that y'all was going through. And I even got to witness how much your dad grew spiritually through your accident and how much it impacted him. And not only did it impact him or you, it actually impacted the whole church. You can see where people's faith began to grow and change as we got to see God work through you. But do you believe that going through this, did it open your eyes to something that you'd never seen before the accident? Like, you grew up here, you knew about the hand of God, the mercy of God, the grace of God, the power of God, but did it reveal something to you that you only heard about but never seen?
Yeah, I mean, really just feeling the Spirit of God and God talking to me. I never had experienced that before. And I won't even say, I heard the deep voice, of God coming to, but I feel like the thoughts that run through my mind, God's putting those thoughts in my mind to grow me. And I'd never experienced that before. I never thought past what I was about to do the next hour. And now I'm thinking of spiritual things that I hope to achieve within my lifetime. And I feel like that's God putting that in my mind of you need to do this in order to get to this spot in your spiritual life.
The Bible talks about people without a vision perish. That's one of the visions that He's given us for each and every one of us for our lives and our walk with Him. Is is having that vision of where you feel God wanting you to go. And the difference is between the average person and the person that's really hungry is, what are you doing to get to that place? What are you doing to climb that mountain, to get you to that spiritual calling with Him? Because I really believe that God is watching God work through you through all these years. I can't wait to see what God continues to do.
Yeah, and I hope I hope I'm able to be used by God in a great way. I don't really care what it is that I do. You know, I told Dallas, I don't know the timeline, it might have been 6 months to a year ago. It was last January, about when I was trying to grow in my spiritual life a lot more. I told Dallas I was praying I wanted to work in the kingdom, do something I didn't really care what it was. Mowing the church more, because I'd already done it some, but not on a schedule. And in July of last year, Brother Wilbanks called and asked if I wanted to be the head of the media department. Without hesitation, I just took it. Didn't really know anything about it, but I'm growing in that. I'm learning in that. But, you know, whatever God has planned for me in my life, I want to do it with 100% and fully go after it. And I think doing the little things right now will really help me to take those steps and take those tasks on and be able to execute them with 100%.
To go back to one of the things that you had made mention of in your testimony, you said you remember going through the ICU and the things that you had to battle. What is something that what was some advice that you would give somebody going through a dark place? Because you referred to how dark it was, depressing, and the things that you would hear that would go through your mind. I have no doubt that it really make you go to a dark place and think, well, I'm never getting out of this situation. What if I don't make it? Or I haven't got a clue. But I can't imagine what you're going through. What is some advice you can give somebody that might be going through a similar situation? May not be the ICU, but they're just in that dark place and they really need a word of encouragement. What was something that helped you get through it? Yeah,
just remember that it's not the end of your life. Even though I was in the ICU, and it very well could have been the end of my life, I never thought that. The thought of me dying never came across my mind. I always felt like I was coming out of it, having faith that God's going to bring you out of it, because He will. I mean, we talked about this in church. If it's your time to go, it's your time to go, and God's going to take you. But I really felt that it wasn't my time to go. And so I always was just pushing myself to do better in that moment, whatever it may be, the physical therapy or, you know, I wasn't really letting myself use it to my disadvantage, I guess is the best way to put it. I never thought too much about it. I always wanted to figure out a way to do more to get out of that place as quick as possible. A good example is when I went to rehab in the hospital there. I told them, I believe I went in June the 28th. And I told them, I said, you know, July 4th's coming, and that's my favorite holiday. I plan on being out of here by July 4th. And they said, there's no way. It's a 2-week program. There's no way you're coming out. I walked out, or I didn't walk out, but I left the hospital. Yeah, I will now. I left the hospital July 2nd because I pushed myself. I didn't want the nurses helping me. They were there to assist me, but I wanted to do it on my own. I wanted to prove that I'm okay. I was at the time 17 years old. I wanted to prove I'm capable of doing this by myself physically. And God really helped me out with the mental and spiritual side of it, to where I was able to push myself no matter how bad the pain was. I just pushed myself. So I guess my best advice is don't let your thoughts or your mentality drag you down. Always be searching for something to uplift you and a solution to get out of the situation you're currently in.
I love it. Unwavering faith that this ain't going to keep me here.
Oh, yeah. No, you can't let it keep you there, because you let it keep you there, there's no room for growth. I'm always looking to grow.
Did you feel like God always had a purpose for the situation?
Absolutely, yeah. At that time, me and my wife, Dallas, I'll just say her name so that it's a lot easier. Me and Dallas, we weren't dating at the time. We started dating while I was in the hospital, actually. And, a year after that, we got engaged. But if it wasn't for that, I probably would have never gotten married. I never wanted to get married when I was a teenager, unless I was, in my 30s. That's when I planned on settling down. But it did boost me into a more mature part of my life, and a lot of good came out of it.
You're talking about the maturity, boosting you to the maturity part of your life in your spiritual walk with God. Do you think that another statement that you made earlier said that you came to church out of respect to your parents? Mm-hmm. Do you believe that had something to do with your mentality to get through this? Even though you were coming to church, you said you wasn't participating. You was here, but you was checked out.
Right.
But you were still here. Do you believe that there is something that was like a seed that may have been planted or dropped into your spirit that helped you get through that situation because this is what you did know?
Right.
This is what your parents taught you. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you were just here, but now, you was just coming to church, but now you're in this situation, and because of what you heard or witnessed is what helped you get through your situation?
Yeah, absolutely. The way I look at it is I was running back to my roots. I knew that at the time I was in a low place in my life, and if I had never come to church, or if I would have checked out of church completely and not came, I might not have had that support from the church family that I did, and I really needed that. It was really shocking to see how much love came from the church when I really was there but checked out, not really creating relationships. So I felt comfortable running back to the church. If I would have quit, probably would have never came back. Even with that happening, I might not have came back. It's hard for me to answer because I did. Right. But yeah, I felt like me being here, it let me know this is where you run to, especially when you're in a time of need and you're now wanting to grow. This is where it is.
I believe in the world that we live in today, or even for the young people, or for really heavier for the adults, that if they mess up or make a mistake and they try to come back to the church, that they have to deal with more embarrassment or shame instead of confidence that people will love them in spite of their failures, in spite of their mistakes. And to hear to hear you say that I felt comfortable coming back because I trusted that my church would love me. And, I believe that in somebody's life, they need to hear that. They need to know that I can go back home. I can, like the prodigal son, he found himself in a horrible situation, sold all that he had, lost all of his friends. And when he thought he had nothing, he came to himself. He said, I can go back to my father's house. And he said, at the least, I could be a servant.
Right.
Because even they're fed. They're not hungry. They're not sleeping outside in the mud. They're not, at the least. And so he knew that his father wouldn't just completely turn him away. He may not restore him, but he didn't completely turn him away. And there might be somebody today that needed to hear that and to know that there's always room for you at home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And a loving family will always welcome you back in.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I love the phrase, we've heard it, church should be like a hospital. Sick people go to the hospital. Right. Broken people go to church. I don't like the fact a lot of people will look at church and think it's just filled with perfect people. It's definitely not. Every one of us is broken, and we are in need of God. No matter how well put together it looks like we are, we're definitely not. We all battle and struggle things every day. We're just able to run to a God that loves us, forgives us, and helps us fight through it.
Absolutely.
I'll give you a hard one. I had a question for you.
Okay.
What advice would you give someone young that's trying to fit in in the high school area, like you were?
Good question.
You said you're just trying to fit in.
Mm-hmm.
What would you give to someone that's trying to go to church, try to do the right thing, but they're having a problem fitting in and still being in church?
Well, if
was
you
a hard one.
if you currently have friends that aren't spiritual or that don't go to church, I would just say love them from a distance. It's okay to associate with people that aren't in church, but you really can't get yourself caught up in what they're doing. And I still have a lot of friends that don't go to church. Just unfortunately, I don't put myself in their life as much as I used to, just because I know that their goals and their aspirations are far between what mine are. And I still,
You feel like it's a little counterintuitive, a little
it's like a
it's not promoting your life any. If
Right.
anything, it's slow it down just a little bit.
it's like a seesaw. If they get on one side, you're on the uphill and sliding down with them. And I still love them, and my goal is to reach out to them and help them find Christ. But you just have to love them from a distance and really draw a line and a boundary and not step over that. And that's a hard one.
It's gonna be a hard one. Well, what kind of got me to that question was, there's youth nowadays that they want to fit in. I get that. I was there, but I wasn't that person.
Right.
So it's kind of hard to see some of the youth that we have now that want to fit in, but they still want to go to church.
Right.
Yeah,
it's tough, especially when the world doesn't push God at all.
Right.
They almost set kids up for failure. And I won't get into that because that gets more political. But with the whole school system and Hollywood and all that, they definitely you're setting America up or kids in America up for failure in life. A lot of kids picture this movie high school life that is almost unrealistic. It's not picture perfect,
Right.
and it's in high school. I didn't struggle at all to make friends and stuff, but I guess there was a con to that. I did let it get to my head, and I did let it take me away. So for a high school kid, I think they just need to find other kids that have that same interest, even if it's not kids that go to the same church. Find kids that are looking to grow with God.
Right.
And there's some out there that don't even go to church just because their parents don't go to church, but they're looking for God too. Right. I've seen those. I work at Chick-fil-A, and you hear stories of high school kids, and there's a lot of kids out there hungry for God. You just got to find the right ones to get yourself around.
Do you believe it's worth risking the inheritance of growing up in this life and knowing the truth of one God, one faith, one baptism, growing up in it, knowing it, learning it, living it, believing it? Is it worth risking to be accepted or to have a season of worldliness?
Definitely not. No, it's not. Because that satisfaction only lasts so long. You get that I guess emotional high, and it starts to drag you down. Like, let's just say, for example, because I use examples best, I believe. Kids start drinking in high school. Well, eventually their craving grows. Well, that craving brings you into alcoholism. And then, it's hard. No wife wants to marry an alcoholic most of the time. So, and then that really plays with their emotions. That affects your career, your choices in life. It's definitely not worth it at all to trade something so great as God's love for a little bit of fun. A in the moment fun.
A drug addict, I'll often tell you, is always looking for that next high. It's
Right.
kind of the same way. Once you get to this little bit, it's like, I got to have more.
Yeah.
I got to have more.
Yeah, and I even thought about it this morning during service. Jesus spoke to the woman at the well and said, "I'm the well that'll never run dry. You'll never thirst again." And that is so true. It's hard to believe, especially when you are chasing after worldly things. It really is hard to believe, but it's so true. Even after doing all my studying in the past year and a half now, there's still more. I can still dive deeper, still grow my knowledge, and I really want to. I really do feel, it's like a fire shut up inside of your bones. You just can't get enough of it.
Just like the addict chasing after him, you can put that same effort towards
Right.
whatever you put that craving towards
Mm-hmm.
is what you're after. I mean, like you've changed your direction. You're craving after the word.
Yeah.
You know.
And I'm big on choices in life too. I always like to triple think my choice before I make it. Even in my career in the past year, I've been debating on leaving. I finally decided to, but even the day I went to turn in my 2-week notice at my past job, I prayed. I said, Lord, if this is not the right choice, have somebody call me, let me know, give me a sign. Like, yeah, and it never happened. So I did it, and I do feel like I have grown a lot. It was definitely what I needed, but I think if you do that and you're cautious of your choices and you learn to grow with the choices that you make, then you're setting yourself up for success. You hold your own self accountable, and you're really bound for success.
We're put places for a season a lot of times.
Yeah.
Sometimes your season's up, it's time to move on.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that'll prolong your breakthrough or your growth if you refuse to. Because you take a plant that's been a potted plant, and it grows for so long, and it's ready for it to grow any larger. The root source is done filled up that pot, and until you take it out of that pot and put it into a bigger one, it'll never grow any more than what it is. And in our life, I believe that's one thing that we do is sometimes we may hold ourselves in a pot longer than what God wants us to, and it kind of stagnates stalemate, and there's no growth, but there's no loss, but there's no growth. And I believe if you stay there too long, it will eventually start causing you to regress and start doubting yourself and start doubting God's calling, God's anointing, God's favor, God's purpose, and His prophecy or whatever it might be. And God's trying to say, all right, it's time for you to
Time to move.
trying to move forward. It's time to change direction. And even Brother Wilbanks, in the past couple of weeks, you can witness and testify that how God has been moving in our services. And Brother Wilbanks is even stated that God's turned our church into a new direction. And you can start seeing it in people's lives, in their prayer life, in their worship, in their walk with God, is they're transitioning to the move. And in that transition, you see them starting to open up and grow so much more in knowledge and in faith.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we always think about our own lives, but when God moves you and directs you in a different direction, think about the other lives that you're able to impact as well. Right. I went from an office of 3 people, now I work with probably 50 people a day. That's more people that I'm able to witness to, hear, and kind of connect with on a different level, and who knows what doors might open up through just having more people around me, hearing different stories. God will use you in weird ways, in ways that you never think that you will be used. But I guess we have to look at it as like, maybe this is good for me, but this is also good for somebody else as well.
Is your testimony, because your testimony is relatable to so many people, even if they hadn't been through an accident or a situation. There's so many things that you've encountered or endured, from dark days, gloomy days, but as long as you hold the faith and hold strong, that you can make it out. There's so many people that can benefit from just connecting to you and listening to it, or you just sharing some aspect of your testimony and how their lives could prosper from it.
Yeah, and I've heard that a lot from people I don't even know. They talk about how my story has really impacted them. I'm like, dude, I don't know who you are. I feel bad. But my dad, he tells me all the time, people walking up and telling them. There was one not too long ago, I don't know if he told you guys, but there was a guy that was working out at a gym with him, and his daughter was going through something pretty similar as what I went through. And really just hearing my story encouraged him and strengthened his faith, just hearing my story. So you never know what you go through, how many people it will impact. And going through that, it baffled me, as many people that would come up to me and tell me that they think it was great, and that they were able to use something from my story in their life to strengthen and grow them.
Phenomenal. It's awesome. Brother Tyler, we want to thank you for your time and coming down and sharing your story and your testimony. And man, I'm excited to see somebody excited. It inspires you. So thank you so much for coming down and spending time with us and just sharing your story for the world to hear.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. It was great to be here.